Really enjoyed Double Life, Martin.
Oh, thank you. I
And
enjoyed doing it. I had a lot of fun with it.
speaking of enjoying doing it, just in layman's terms, what's the key as far as prep time specifically for this film? Because I'm sure there's a lot of things you and your crew have to visualize or whatnot. What are the steps in prep before the actual first day of shooting?
There's a lot. I mean, first off, for me, I like to go into a movie with the movie in my head, not cut in my head, but with the cadence, with the cut pattern, with this kind of stuff. That for me, especially with a thriller like this, is important is an important part of the prep for it. Casting, obviously, finding the locations, all that kind of stuff is the mechanical part of prep for this. And so we go out. I sit down with the production designer, and I talk about the mood and the color of the tonal quality and this kind of stuff. And so it's people sitting down there. They're all have the movie in their head, and all have to go at it from a different perspective. You know, a production designer has to say, okay, tell me who these people are. Tell me where Joe lives. Tell me what her place is like in your head. Tell me who she is. And then they'll come up with, the design of Joe's apartment. And the design of Joe's apartment was really important to me to be different than Sharon's. So Sharon lives this life, Joe lives this life, and we're going to stuff the two of them together. So they have to spend weeks together running away from this darkness that's coming after them, and being able to set this in these places, which have a cinematic quality to them, but don't distract from where what the movie is trying to do, which is have this friendship burgeon between these two people who should not be friends, and ultimately figure out what happened to this love triangle person that they were both involved with, and so all of that during the prep, all of that kind of is cycling through my head is who this character is, who this character is, where they are in the world, where they live, and things like that. And then you start putting it together, and it sounds way more esoteric than it really is. It becomes the script. These characters only exist between page 1 and page 107. And so you have a pretty good guide of who they are right there. But then putting them onto the screen so that everybody else understands that is the prep process that we go through. And we find locations that fit Joe's apartment. We find locations that fit Sharon's house. And once you go through that, then the process of making the movie daily is part of sort of what I have to have in my head. So I do a lot of homework. I do shot lists. I do everything like that to not in order to tell people what we're going to do that day. I can do that on the day. But for me, my process is I need to have the scene settled in my head in this place in the movie, so that if there's questions about am I here or am I there with with my feelings about her, or my feelings about this, or have we already had this? Everything is in line in my head, and once that process has gone through, I go, okay, I can do that.
This is just popped in my mind. I'm thinking I'm a huge movie fan, so I'm thinking like Howard Hawks and having John Wayne in his movies. Or what is it like to have two absolutely talented actresses to actually put your narrative on? How obviously you have so much work to do, but how much do they make your process easier and maybe even more importantly gratifying throughout this journey? Because my only complaint is I want more of them together in more films down the road. So how
Yeah,
does that make your
I hear
process?
you.
You know what I mean? How does that make your process
I
and
do.
maybe easier or more gratifying as well?
Well, I think that the answer to that, Greg, would be what's on the screen. When you see those scenes where the two of them are deeply involved with each other in truths and that kind of stuff, that for me is some of the most gratifying stuff that you see with this caliber of actor, where when we sit down and we'll block a scene out and start rehearsing it, and um, you realize that what these two characters have, and especially the speed that we shoot movies like this in sometimes, there's not a lot of time to go into the backstory of this character, the backstory of this character. So the actors come with that sort of built into their head, where I'm able to do this because of this. I'm able to do this because of this, and this limits me, and this limits me, and all those kind of things. But what's interesting about being the director of something like this is that you get to, mold it a little bit like you do with dough or with clay, and you get to push a little bit here, push a little bit there, so that there is a consistency through the entire movie of who these two characters are. I love doing scenes for the first time with actors who are playing the scene with each other for the first time, because they'll sit in their trailer and learn their lines. They'll sit at home and they'll do this kind of stuff. But one of my favorite things is not doing necessarily a read through, but when you do the rehearsal for the scene, and they're both discovering what the other person is going to do with it. And then you watch them go like this with it. And what you end up seeing on the screen is this, where they've both had a chance to do that. And sometimes with very little input from me, these two actors have taken, the talent that they come to on the day with, and are able to play with it in ways that this is who I am. This is who my guy is. This is who my guy is. In this case, both Joe and Sharon grew very quickly on both Javicia and on Pascale, and they brought that to each scene. So in the cemetery scene, where first off you see Joe watching from afar, and all she wanted to do was see who this wife was, see who it was that was his wife. And there's this woman there that is very obviously the person who's just lost her husband, and you just get this look on Joe's face. But the next time they meet, the first question is, "Did you know my husband?" And the audience goes, "Oh no," And what those two actors did with that scene, where Sharon plays it completely flat, and Joe is, "I have to get out of here," and they end up going for a drink. I love that kind of warp to a scene, and it happens any number of times. The honesty scene, when Sharon is cleaning up her house and says, "Get out of here." "No, I have to tell you this." That honesty scene was, the words were in the script, but quite honestly, the honesty and the raw honesty that comes out, that's Javicia and that's Pascale bringing that to life with it. I love that. I love seeing that kind of stuff.
No, I don't know. I think maybe I'm looking at your IMDb. Maybe your first credit might be 1993 or 94. When you were starting out in your journey as a filmmaker, did you ever think you'd be helming projects, series as a filmmaker and producer that would just really be almost iconic for just different communities, whether it's the sci-fi community, family drama community? What's the key to that, to actually building that community and having projects that pretty much are transcendent and still live on? Have you found that? Is there an unlock to that, or so?
Well, Greg, thank you very much for the compliment. I really appreciate that. Obviously, that's the kind of thing that I think every filmmaker strives toward, is to be able to do something that makes people feel a certain way when they watch something, or makes people think, "Oh, I really appreciate that care went into dealing with that character or that community or whatever." And I think that we just have to be more careful sometimes in the way that we portray people and the way that we portray scenario and stuff like that, so that we're being sensitive to what happens in the world, and what happens to different communities, and what happens to different different cultures and things. That's all important, and you can't just go into a movie blindly when you're dealing with these things. So I very much appreciate you asking the question. I very much appreciate having to think about it to give you an answer. That it's always something you look forward to as a director. You're always looking for something that stretches you in terms of, I moved out of sci-fi into romantic comedies, and then into romantic dramas, and then into dramas, and then into the thrillers and things like that. And every time you make a move from genre to genre, everybody sort of points at you and goes, "Aren't you that guy that did sci-fi? Aren't you that guy that did this?" And you go, "No, no, I'm not that guy that actually took a script and went, oh, I like doing this, and mechanically I know how to make a film. Give me a chance to do something that is heartfelt or has an emotion to it that you want to do, or puts people into scenarios that is controversial right now, or is not very much accepted in community right now, and let's make that work in a movie for ourselves." So all of that goes into directing a film, and given the opportunity in any number of ways to do it, I embrace it.
Speaking of embracing it, I mean, there's so many different layers. So I'm in my early 50s, and a movie like Must Love Christmas with an Asian American as a lead seemed almost impossible back in the early 90s. And now there's two layers. People like from our generation realize how really cool it is. And, talent is talent, no matter what ethnicity you are. That's number one. But
Yeah.
do you ever think about that when you're helming something like Must Love Christmas, that
Yes.
we've come a long way? And then on top of that, it's still a good story no matter what. I mean, talk about those kind of the flip side of that coin, right? So.
Well, I'll tell you, certainly with Must Love Christmas, one of the things I was aiming for was make this normal. Don't point a finger at it and say, "Oh, look what I can do," or "Look what we've done with this movie," and hold it up like this. Make it, this is what happens in life. This is where people meet each other. This is how people meet each other. This is, and don't point a finger at it and say, this is, this is a relationship between two men that I have to hold up and say, this is special in here. No, it's special because it's two people that are falling in love. This is this is a relationship between cultural communities and stuff. You don't have to hold that up. You just say, when you walk down the street, you're not asking yourself, why is this person with that person? You see them in love, and it's just normal. And so for me, I'm especially, from the background that I've got, where it is absolutely normal to see all ethnicities, to see all cultures together and stuff, without holding up a big torch and saying, "Oh, look how different this is." It's not different. It's normal. It's just maybe sometimes on television we have categorized things a certain way, and you're right. Our generation sits there and goes, "Okay." The generation that's coming up goes, "Why are you making a point about this?" So it's nice to be able to make something, and especially with Must Love Christmas, I really enjoyed not holding up anything. And Lisa and I talked about it a lot. Is, let's not point at it. Let's just make it part of what happens in a day. And I felt that really worked in especially in Must Love Christmas, where we were able to put all these different elements into that pot and just mix it up, so it was something that was, this is beautiful and normal. I like doing that. I love doing that, in fact.
Final couple questions, Martin. Me as a cinephile, I used to be more into a certain type of movie when I was in my early 20s, and like maybe Brian De Palma's visual style. And now as I get older, I look at different things, maybe character-based films and performances and thematic. So that me as a movie fan. Now, for you as a director, what do you obsess over these days as a storyteller and artist, as that maybe you didn't when you were younger? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. It's interesting being a director, growing up and wanting to be a director, and growing up and seeing things. There were certain things that attracted me to it, and a lot of it was shot making and things like that. And so when I first learned, because I started out life as a camera person, I started shooting news and doing a bunch of stuff like that, where I was looking at the world through a lens. And so it naturally came to me to when I'm doing film and television, to look through the lens and be able to compose the world like that. But what has changed for me is doing character-based pieces where shot style is not as much of there's not much intrigue in doing the kind of shot making that you have to do sometimes in order to tell these stories. Because if you get too fancy with it, people get distracted from what they're supposed to be looking at, which is this and this happening and this happening, and you lose that. And I have to say that nowadays, the best, my favorite scenes are the ones that are beautifully acted, and really, there's nothing special about how you set it up. It's always beautiful. It's always going to look, well composed and so that. But it's what happens inside that screen and inside that frame that really works. As filmmakers, and you know this as a cinephile, you know that filmmakers make films for other filmmakers. We always do. Look how fancy I can get with this one that I'm doing right now. And truthfully, I work with the same crew a lot. I work with the same DP a lot. I work with the same camera operators. I work with the same ADs. And I love doing that because you can see it in their eyes when you set up a shot that is hard for them to do and still tells the story and does it in such a way that nobody's going to look at it and go, oh, look what they're doing with the shot. But other filmmakers go, that was really hard. What you just did there was really hard. And you go, it really was. Thanks for recognizing it. And then they go, I love the movie, and it's like, okay, great. They're seeing it for more than just that shot style.
Yeah.
Those things are important.
My final question to you is that, I've always wondered what makes a successful director as well as a producer, because there are successful directors who do not have the facility to become a supervising producer, EP, or overall producer. What is that ingredient that you need if you're a filmmaker to actually also transition and also maybe have a parallel career as a producer?
That's a really easy answer. Experience. There's a lot of EPs that have never been on a film set before. And the difficulty with that is that they don't know what it takes to make what they want to make. So if you're a writer coming in as an EP, sometimes you sit there going, well, I want this to happen. And you go, well, the physical constraints of the number of days we have or the number of times I can move location or that kind of stuff doesn't happen. Coming at it from where I come at it from, which is first an AD and coming at it through as a camera operator and things like this, where I've done all these positions. I have a sense of what it takes to make these films, and so what makes me an effective producer, an effective EP, is that I can look at a script and I can say, okay, I know what it takes to make this. And it's going to take this much money, and to be able to bring those two forces together to make that film is frankly what makes me, I was going to say a desirable EP, but I mean what I mean is somebody that can easily transition between the two, and sometimes it's what, as far as I'm concerned, it's what makes a better director too. Because you know what you're asking for. You know the physical capabilities of this type of lens. I shot double life anamorphically, which isn't a normal medium for me. But suddenly it opens up the screen. So I'm looking for shots like them coming down the stairs at the waterfront there to say, look at what you can do on a big screen. And knowing what I know about cameras and I know what I know about lenses, I can make that a part of the doesn't become unusual that's happening, so experience is all I can say is that make lots of films and you can fit into a lot of different roles.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Really enjoyed Double Life.
No, I appreciate hearing that. Thanks so much, Greg.